Hello, everybody. This is JJ Hardy here with Victory Leadership Coaching, and this is my live Friday leadership training. And as always, this group can grow, by the way, but we have Hannah here today, and she's going to be my continued guinea pig until this live call grows. Today, our topic is going to be starting with the end in mind. So before I go into the actual training, I'm going to put Hannah on the spot. Don't worry, I warned her before the call, but I'm going to be putting Hannah on the spot, and we're going to ask her what she thinks that means. So, Hannah, I'm just curious, what do you think it means to start with the end in mind?
So the first thing that pops into my head is basically if you have a goal, like you start with the goal in mind and then you work on how to get to that goal. That that's my guess.
That's basically the gist of it, but it's a lot more than that. So, when you're getting ready to do anything, when you start talking about living life or leading your teams intentionally, you have to have vision behind it. And so when you're starting with the end in mind, it means you already understand what you're going to be doing as an outcome before you even go. And if you understand what your overall outcome is, it doesn't really matter how it's executed. Um, but you are always course correcting throughout the process of executing every task that you do to make it so that when you get to that end state, you've you've done everything that you've done was a workup towards that. Now, this works for a number of things. I wrote down a few things down here, like you said, setting goals. That's an obvious one, but you know that's okay. There's more to it than that, and I'll go into a little bit of that. But I mean, even if you're doing things such as planning a trip, if you're starting a business, say you're doing sales and you're trying to sell a product, maybe it's just leading your team and you have an overall objective that day or that month or that week. All of these things require you to keep the end in mind. So let's go into what you mentioned first, which was setting goals. If you understand what your goal is, and I'll just make sure that let's go ahead and say that goal is planning a trip, because I actually use this as an example. I was a transportation planner for most of my adult life. So if you start with the end in mind and you're just planning a trip, say it's a 4 to 6 hour drive, that's a half a day of driving. If you're gonna drive over to a water park and that's your goal, and then you're either gonna spend the night or you're gonna come back, you know what you want to do. But is it that easy if you're the one preparing it? Eh, yes and no. I mean, when you're the adult in the situation, or maybe it's a team of two people, you got to think about it a little. If you're being intentional, right? You got to think about it in a little bit more detail than that. Logistically, how many miles do you normally drive before you have to fill up with gas? Well, let's take a look at the map. Are there fuel points between here and there? And if it takes 200 miles to get to a half, three quarters of a tank of gas, in 200 miles from where we start, is there a fuel point? Well, we want to stay in a hotel. What's our budget? What type of hotel do we want to stay in? Do they need to have free breakfast? Well, there are some logistics that you got to plan there. When you get there, what are you going to eat? Are you just going to hope that there's a bunch of stuff there and just eat out? Or maybe, which is what I've done in the past when I go on a business trip, I actually take a little crock pot with me, put it in the room, throw some stuff in it, go execute my day, come back, and I have a meal ready for me. And that actually works really well if you're doing family vacations as well. Um, but there's a lot going on there. And if you have a family, it's even more, because you have complaining children in the back seat that are hungry every 5 minutes. So you got to make sure before you leave that you get snacks, and not just snacks, but you're getting the right snacks. So starting with the end in mind is a really good thing to do when you're doing just about anything. I mean, we have a lot of business people here that are watching this call, and feel free to chime in if you have anything to say. I can see your comments. I won't be able to see who you are on the right side. I use StreamYard, and it only tells me what platform you're tuning in on, but I learned that the other day. But, chime in if you have a comment to say about this. But as business people, we really need to be intentional about each day. A lot of people have issues with time management. If you know that your ultimate goal is to have more time every day, then how are you planning your day? Because if you're just looking at your calendar every morning and then going through the motions, chances are whatever you planned on working on during that day is going to get lost. And it's either going to take you into your extra hours that you might be spending with your family, or it's going to carry over into the next day. And how many days do you want to repeat that cycle? Start with the end in mind. If you're starting a business and you're just going through the motions because, starting a business is no big deal. I'm going to go cut grass for a living, so I'm just going to go knock on doors, and that's going to be my entire plan. Well, what are you going to do when that doesn't work out? Start with the end in mind. Figure out what you're going to do next. If you're leading a team and you are responsible for not just your schedule, but you're responsible for everybody's schedule, then if you have to do your time management, then you might need to manage their time as well. And it turns into this big old thing, but have a plan for whatever that looks like. Start with the end in mind. I'm sure you have a list of tasks. And selling a product, well, if you're going into a conversation not really knowing how that's going to go, say that you're selling insurance. You don't know necessarily what type of insurance you're going to be selling when you first get on the call, but what is your mindset going to be going into that call? Well, my guess is, and this is mine whenever I'm on a sales call with somebody, is that they are going to buy from you and you guys are going to have a relationship. And if you go into it knowing that you want to help that person and that that's going to be the outcome, whether or not it works out, sales is not one of those things where you can guarantee every single call, but start with the end in mind. Yeah. And that's basically it. But, a lot of people don't understand. And when you're setting goals, that's really the most complex one, because it really kind of drives every single other thing that I brought up. You have to have goals. You have to understand how to plan. And if you are starting with the end in mind, well, guess what? That's the outcome. Now, what's everything that needs to be done in order to achieve that? It might go in 15 different orders, but if you plan those things out and then you set out what the most important things are, at least you have a starting point. And I'm sure you'll screw it up 50 times. I know I do whenever I start executing something, but at least you know what you're trying to achieve instead of just winging it, like, quite honestly, most people do. And so that's the entire lesson for the day. It's a quick one, but it's an important one. What'd you think?
I learned something new.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so it didn't occur to me for it to be the vision that should be the end. I always set the goal, but the goal gets you to the vision.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense. I
Well,
appreciate that.
it's fine, and no problem. I mean, listen, not everybody is going to be working off of a vision. I mean, you should if you're a business owner like you are, Hannah. Just because if you understand your overall objective, and we've talked about this in the past, that is what you do have a vision for what you want to do in your company.
Mhm.
But not everybody does. If you're just going through monthly goals, I mean, you could absolutely be successful doing that. But if you really want to knock something out of the park, have daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and I'll be quite honest with you, I would have a 5-year plan if you're super, super serious about it. And, if that 5-year plan is probably where your company is going to be overall headed, that's probably that vision that you have in your head. It's not going to be a 12-month plan, most likely. Some people think that that's the case. I have found that with a really big goal, it takes longer than that. So, I mean, that honestly, that's the reason why a lot of people don't even start. It's because they're like, this big idea that I have is just so daunting. It's
Mhm.
just so intimidating. I just don't even know where to start. Well, be intentional about it. If you want to get realistic with your goals, then you need to figure out if it's something that's feasible for you or not. How much does it take to do this? What are all my goals in order to reach that vision? And how long do I think it's going to take me to get there?
Mhm.
If you don't have a way forward, you're just going to stay where you are. And then it's a dream that's just going to stay a dream. And so if you really have these goals, really the goals are the vision. And if you don't understand what it takes to get there, then it's just going to be this great idea that you smile and talk about. But if you really want to get excited about that vision and that goal, figure out what it takes to execute it and then start. That's going to be even more exciting.
Yeah.
That's the best part. It's the hardest part,
Right.
but the journey is the exciting part to me. But yeah. We've actually had up to 3 people on here popping on, and it seems like it goes down to 0 and then it goes back up to 3. And they haven't decided if they want to watch or not. That's okay. I'm not super exciting. I get it. I think it's so cool to do these live things because you can see how many people are watching you at all times.
Oh, that is cool.
It is a little bit different. So yeah. Now I'm going to ask you,
Okay.
how is there anything else that really hit home with you, or do you want to talk about the course at all? Or I know you told me before the call where you're at. That means you're almost done with the second module. Just what do you think?
Those the last few lessons, they've been a little bit longer, so there's more to digest. But those are really important lessons, um, especially with myself, who is a people pleaser and does not appreciate confrontation. um, that it, it's not easy for me to hear, but I understand how important it is.
You talking about the feedback and difficult conversation piece?
Mhm.
You know, I will weigh that back too, because everybody, if you want to be successful in any career, even if you're working for somebody else, you need to think about everything you're doing in a business sense.
Mhm.
So, you know, a lot of times you want to make sure that you're helping people learn and grow, and in order to do that, you got to give them feedback. If they're not doing something right, you have to have the personal courage to dig down deep inside you and have a conversation. But if you're thinking like a business owner, I mean, look at the big picture here. So having a difficult conversation, there is a monetary value to that conversation. What is it going to cost you to not have that conversation? I mean, if you have a team and they're all their own independent business owners, what would it mean for your income if they were producing more?
Mhm.
I mean, having a conversation about what they're doing wrong, or what their opportunities are for improvement is an extremely important thing. And it's dual benefit. You're going to probably put some more cheese in your pocket, and you're going to help them learn something new because they're also going to be getting more sales as a result of that, which will help you both.
Mhm. Well, and the other thing is, generally in the past, I would just take on the responsibility myself, but the whole goal in mind is to have time freedom and not have to work my butt off all day. And so I do need people to step up and do their part so that I'm not continuing to take on their tasks. And so that's a big step for me because, like I just said, generally I would not do the confrontational part. I would just take on the responsibility myself.
That can be a hard pill to swallow. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world to do. But comfort is actually the enemy of success, or so I've learned. If you are willing to do the things that other people are not willing to do, the chances of you being successful, they jump significantly higher because it takes those things that other people aren't willing to do to achieve that next level, to achieve that success. And if you're willing to, I mean, conversations are the biggest part of any job in any business. And a
Mhm.
lot of people don't want to do it, don't want to have conversations. They would like to kind of be introverted. Well, you can be an extroverted introvert. Professionally speaking, you really only have to talk to people when you need to talk to people. And you can still keep to yourself the rest of the time. But when it counts, you need to jump out of your comfort zone and go do what you got to do. And then you can go back in your office, shut the door, sweat and smell bad, and do all those things that you do as a result of that conversation, and then let everybody else be better as a result of it.
Exactly. And I think it speaks a lot to the person's character. Um, that one, you're showing the person that you are the leader, and not that not that you're not going to let them get away with something, but that you expect more from them, and you're trying to make them a better person by holding them to higher standards.
if you're not if you're not helping them grow, then you're not leading them. You're just going through the motions. There's a difference between managing and leading. And I know we've talked about that before. If
Mhm.
you're just focused on all of the numbers and the minute tasks that are getting done, but you never take the time to help somebody figure out how to do those things, and you're just willing to fire and move on, or just let somebody fall to the wayside and kind of work themselves out, then you're not really leading them. You're just doing your job. If you want to do just your job, I mean, go back to being an execution level employee, be a
Yeah.
salesperson at a company somewhere. I mean, there's a place for everybody in this world, but if you want to be a leader, if you want to have the ability to lead others, then you need to jump out of your comfort zone and have those difficult conversations. And I'm just repeating myself, but that's honestly the secret sauce. And I mean, if you did that one, then that means you did the setting and managing expectations one too, and that leads right up to it. Oh, did you skip that one?
I don't know. Oh, no, I did
Okay.
it.
Well, I mean, that's just turning your conversations into a something that's a program, and we talked
Yep.
about that in the training last week a little bit. And by the way, hold on a second. My numbers jumped up again, so I'm going to say that this is leadership training with Hannah. She's taking my first time leaders course on my website, victoryleadershipcoaching.com. And we're having this live call as a result of it. We're learning from each other. So if you want to do that, reach out to me, and you can be on part of this call next Friday at noon Central. And I'll tell you how, but you got to book a call with me. No such thing as free chicken. So yeah, the setting and managing expectations is it's programming your conversations with your people. Now, I'm not saying that every single interaction needs to be scheduled, but I call it a counseling program. Some people call it review, performance review. I mean, I've heard all kinds of different stuff. I call it a counseling program, so that's what I'll call it today. But if you are going through and you are scheduling monthly conversations with your people, quarterly conversations with your people, annual conversations with your people, first of all, they're going to be anxious to have regular conversations with you outside of that, because they know at the end of the month they're being evaluated. That's not always a great feeling, but you know that if they know it's coming, then they're always going to be preparing for it. And plus, they know that you're gonna ask them about their goals.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not making any progress towards your goals, it's kind of putting you on the spot. Everything is about accountability and performance. So, I mean, turn that into a program, systematize it, and in addition to that, have as many conversations with every single one of your employees as you can during the scheduled work week and work month, because you want to make sure that they understand what needs to be done and what's going on in the workplace, so that they can always uh, be comfortable with you and also learn as a result of those conversations. Comfort
Agreed.
is a big thing. Comfort means they trust you. Comfort means that they're willing to ask you questions. Trust and comfort is a big thing. If they trust you and they're comfortable with you, chances are they're not going to go move on to another organization.
Got it.
Make it a system. Love it. That's actually my favorite lesson in the entire course, because I think that's like the secret sauce to managing a team is communication.
Yeah, I don't see how you couldn't.
Right?
I
Right?
mean,
And I see that we have some people on here. Does anybody have a question about what we've talked today? You can leave the questions in the comments, or if I don't see them and we log off the call, then you can always, if you're tuning into this after the fact, leave a comment or a question in there, and I will answer that. Or maybe if Hannah sees it, maybe Hannah will answer it for you. I don't know. Maybe, since she's the only one that wants to show up, what's up with all the rest of you guys that are signed up for my course? That's what I'd like to know. But well, I don't think we have to carry this on any longer. We talked about what we were going to talk about, and we'll be doing this again next Friday. So if anybody wants to join up, let me know, and I'll get you signed up. It is $60 a month to participate in these live calls, but it's not it's not just once a month or anything like that. It's every Friday. And if you're not getting value out of it, then it's one of those things that the more people show up, the more value that's going to be put into it. So let's turn it into a group collaborative conversation instead of just a JJ talking to Hannah. So JJ Hardy, Victory Leadership Coaching, Hannah Prince, financial coach, awesome financial coach, by the way. And this concludes this week's training. Okay, my mouse isn't working. There it is.